Stillwater fishing is still a big mystery to many of us out there in the fly fishing world. Is it better to use a balanced leech or a chironomid? Should I use an indicator or not? Is trolling still a valid method to catch fish in lakes? Today we have an expert who is going to walk us through BC fishing and chironomid fishing under an indicator so you have a few more tools in the toolbox for your next Stillwater trip this year. This is the Wet Fly Swing podcast where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to the fish species we all love. Greg Keenan, my good friend and Stillwater Edge podcast host, is going to give us a big update on what he's got going with his new resources out there. You're going to find out how to systematically fish Stillwaters, what his hybrid leader looks like, and what you should know about fishing these leaders and how to find the fish, and what stripping method you're going to be needing to use with these hybrid leaders. Plus, we're going to find out, like I said, if trolling a fly is still something you should be thinking about doing this year. Let's get into it. Here he is, Greg Keenan from the Stillwater Edge. How's it going, Greg?
Great, Dave. How are you?
Good, man. Good. This is going to be exciting to jump into more on Stillwater and hear what you have going. Really, you've got a bunch of new channels and things like that out there. The Stillwater Edge is your new focus. I love this because I think niching down is really a good way to do it because you're serving a specific audience. But we've been doing a lot of things. You know, the school of fishing basically has been a big thing we've been working on the last couple of years. We still have that going. And now this is really your chance to maybe talk about that first. Give us a little update on why did you start the Stillwater Edge?
Well, I think one is I saw a need for it, first of all. I saw a need for the education space in Stillwater because a lot of people I find, a lot of anglers either just don't know. And that was all through the schools that I've done with Phil and then just the school of fishing itself. And when I saw that gap that needed to be filled, I'm like, hey, I know a lot of information that I can, help those anglers get into that, educate them and help them get into that space. So that was kind of the main reason why I did it. I also wanted to, try my hand at fishing guiding as well. And, I always took people out on an education side of things where I took them out fishing. So I wanted to get into the guiding aspect as well. And I know the lakes like the back of my hand up here. And quite frankly, you know what? Hey, you've known me forever. And man, I love Stillwater. And it's something that I know. I might not be the best saltwater angler, I admit that, and I might not be the best river guy, I admit that, but Stillwater, I mean, you've always known I could catch a fish in a lake pretty easily, so.
Yeah, that's right. And you're in one of those kind of meccas for Stillwater fishing.
This is the area, Dave.
Yeah, this is. And so you're in Kelowna. Do you guys have, what do you consider your area of, I guess it's the southern interior. What is that? There's lakes everywhere, right?
There is, yeah. Within my house, there's, 100 lakes within an hour. I'm 3 minutes away from a major lake, which is Okanagan Lake. It's a hard fishery. It's more of a wintertime fishery for Stillwaters, and it's a big water. It's big. It's 100 kilometers long or something like that. So it's not something you'd really want to go out on with a little boat. But yeah, I mean, this is the Mecca. I mean, these high mountain lakes, they're well managed. They're well stocked. A lot of them are, it's a put and take fishery up here. So these fish get big, they get big fast, and the government comes in or the ministry comes in and restocks them. There's a few lakes around here that actually do have the natural rainbows, which is great. Those fish are, and in one of the lodges, Skacheen is a great example. That's all natural as well, all around there. Yep. But, it's the Mecca. It's exactly where you need to be if you want to catch big fish on Stillwater. Yeah.
And do you have, maybe let's talk about that, start there with somebody's coming up there to fish. Where do you start with that? Let's talk about your guiding. You're going to be guiding up there. Where could people first connect with you there? And then where are you going to be taking people, or how's that look?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is if someone wanted to do a guiding trip is to reach out to me. Our prices are competitive with every other guiding company. And then reach out and we would build out the day based on your needs. So if you want to catch a lot of fish, I got lakes for that. If you want to catch that, elusive trophy fish, I have a few select lakes for that as well, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to depend on what your needs are. If you're new to still waters and you want to get into, most people want to get into indicator fishing, right? They want to get into chironomid fishing. That is the bread and butter. That is the holy grail. And they want to get 40 fish days. Okay, well, if you've never indicated fish, then we need to time that to go to a lake where you're going to get for close to 40 fish, right? I don't never guarantee that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So those fish could be anywhere between 14 to 20 inches long. If you want to get something above the 24 into the 24, 30 inches, there's where you might only get one or two hits all day. There's lakes that we can do that too, right?
Yeah.
Those are long days, especially if you're just beginning. It's, a lot of hunting.
Let's take it for my example, I always go back to this. I think I've talked about this a little bit in the podcast, but I remember my dad, and this is one of those things where you remember stuff, right? Everything was bigger back in the day. But I remember my dad going back when I was a little kid, going up to BC and bringing home these photos of these giant Kamloops fish. You know what I mean? But let's take it there. If I want to go out with you and get a big fish, what's our day going to look like? I don't know. We don't have to give away any secrets on where we're going, but talk about that a little bit. It's going to be some work to find that big fish, but can we do it with indicators and chironomids?
Absolutely, 100%. In
Okay.
fact, that's the biggest way of doing it.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is because chironomids, you have different techniques. Why is chironomid fishing and with the indicators, why is that something that, is so popular right now?
I think it's a mystery of it. I think people are just drawn to it. It's I think there's two folds to it. One is the mystery, and there's honestly like the high is watching that indicator get just pulled right underwater. You're staring at something, and all of a sudden it just goes right underwater, and you know that there's a big fish on the other end. I think that is truly what it is about indicator fishing, right? You've worked hard, you put in the energy, you found the right depth, you put on the right fly. I mean, all the puzzle pieces have come together, and then you watch that indicator go under. That's the magic.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with indicator fishing is it's complex. It's a complex leader system. It's a complex. It's a completely different cast. It's a big wide cast. If you do in tight loops, you just made a mess of your indicator leader. So there's a lot of complexity in indicator fishing, timing it so that the wind is pushing your indicator out, so your line is tight to the indicator itself. Finding the right depth, finding the right fly. I mean, there's millions of chironomid patterns that guys are tying. The possibilities are endless. So finding that and having a fish take that, I think that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, definitely. What is that? I want to get into some of the details on all that leader setup, casting. But talk about, are there any areas up there? I mean, are pretty much all the Stillwater areas known, or is there some secrets, or could you point out a few areas? Like if we are going to be potentially driving up there, because we're heading up to Alaska. So if we were going to stop in for the night, maybe somewhere, what would you say? Are there any non-secrets up there?
Yeah, there's a lot of non-secrets. I think the big thing is a lot of the lakes have forest, like BC forest rec sites that you can use. And I would just, if you're to do the camping method, I would stay there and fish those. I can give you a list of those lakes, and you can put them in the notes if you want.
Yep.
And all the lakes that I'll mention, just for the record, are lakes that I feel that can sustain pressure for sure, right? So I wouldn't give away anything that send 100 people to.
Yeah.
The lakes up here in this region, like I said, there's so many lakes and they're just so close together within like kilometers to spitting distance to each other. So, and that we're truly blessed. It is, it's like you guys with your rivers down where you are, Dave, like you're truly blessed as well, right? That's why it's so good. So if you were to drive up here through, Kelowna and you were to hit the connector highway, the 97C, that area is littered with lakes, and that's my fishing grounds. It's it's an endless possibility. Some of the top lakes, if you wanted to stay at a lake with resorts around our area, there's what is there? There's Corbett Lake, which is fantastic. There's Douglas Lake, which is fantastic, both of which we do schools at. There's Skacheen, which is another smaller lake. It's a bit out of the way, but it's a great off the grid lake. And all these are able to accommodate people with sleeping quarters and whatnot. But yeah, start there, man.
Okay, and so there's plenty. So we've had a few episodes where we've talked about, kind of BC and traveling up that way. So that's good. Well, let's get into a little bit on, the system that you talked about. So if we're going up there, we're going to find one of these lakes. We'll find a campground to hit on the way up. What does the setup look like? Talk about, I guess the leader is the big thing. Describe that, how you build your leader setup.
Absolutely. Yeah. So mine's a hybrid leader design between what most guys do and then what Phil does. Having taught many schools with him, for many years. He has a different leader system, but we've kind of I've adapted over the years between the two. So mine will start with your coming off your. I always use a floating line.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll come down with everything I have was fluorocarbon, and I'll use a 12-foot out of the package fluorocarbon leader, indicator leader. Again, I'll use like a Rio indicator leader on that. I'll have a strike indicator. From there, I work it down to a barrel swivel, and then from the barrel swivel down, I'll add about another 2 feet of fluorocarbon tippet as well. I add a split shot about a foot above the fly. If I need to extend that leader, so that'll give me 12 and then 2, so that's 14 feet. If I need to extend it and say fish is 17 to, I don't fish anything deeper on an indicator past 20. So if I needed to extend that leader, I would tie onto the Rio leader and use that as a working end. I would always have that 2-foot section from the barrel swivel to the fly as my fly section, if that makes sense for you guys. Yeah, I mean, it's simple, it's easy. If I break off, it's easy to tie. The other end is my more of a working end, and that's where I chop and add leader to it. So
gotcha. So the swivel is key because you can just cut off, put on new tippet, and then from the swivel, and then you'd have your if you needed a split shot.
Yeah, the swivel is key for 2 reasons. One, it actually acts it's a weight.
Oh, it's a weight. Yeah,
my fly in the zone, especially on wavy days. And 2, it's a bit of a pendulum, so my fly will swing, and it won't swing out of the zone because that swivel holds everything down. And is on top of that, I have a split shot as well, particularly when I'm doing longer, like fishing in deeper water, right? I really want to make sure my fly's in the zone. That is 100% key in Stillwater. Is finding that right area and right zone.
Yeah, the right zone. Where would your indicator be, and what is the indicator you're using?
So the indicator that we use is a foam indicator, like a quick release foam indicator, and that's because of the longer depths that we have in Stillwater. So that indicator is with a quick release foam indicator is when you release it, it allows that indicator to slide up and down your line, right? So if we were to use, say, an indicator for a river system, one of those new
the thingamabob
or say thingamabob or an Oros or something like that. That's actually locked onto the line, right? That you know what I mean? It doesn't allow you to slide. So if you have a 20-foot leader, you're not going to be able to pull that fish into the boat, right? Because you're 20 feet out.
Yeah.
So that's why we use those foam quick release indicators, which are, they're fantastic. They don't last as long as the other ones, especially in a day. You'll go through a couple, pegging and repegging and stuff like that. But they're great for what it's doing up here.
Yeah, so those are the ones where if you get a fish on, it releases and it slides Correct. Up. And does it slide up? It stays on, it just slides up your leader.
Correct. It'll slide right down to the fly. It'll slide right down to the swivel is where it goes.
Oh, to the swivel. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yep, okay. Right. That's exactly how far that indicator should slide down.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and then you can adjust this thing. And then do you adjust this indicator based on the depth that you're at?
Absolutely. Yeah. That is key. So again, if if we're fishing in the bottom of the lake, because let's say it's 20 feet down, and we want to start off at 19 feet, right? So you're gonna, if you have a leader and say the leader is 20 feet, you're gonna peg it down, a foot from the fly line, right, from the top of there, so that you're a foot above the bottom. That's the prime feeding zone.
Yeah, gotcha. When you make that cast out there with that setup, I mean, how are you counting? How do you know when you're down, when it's actually straight down or deep enough below you?
It's a good question. So again, with that split shot that I put on there, it allows that fly, that tiny little chironomid. And for those that don't know what a chironomid, it's a midge, right? Yeah. So it allows it to sink a lot faster, and again, gets me in the feeding zone a lot faster. Hence why I put that on there, right? As opposed to waiting for that natural drift to fall. So you can do a countdown method, or you can just sit there and wait, and you'll kind of see your fluorocarbon, your leader, just sort of slowly pull, and then you'll see the indicator shift. And then when the indicator shifts, you're straight down, right? It's funny. It's a 90 degree. It's the only way to fish a 90 degree with a fly line. If you were to take that indicator off, that method is called the naked line fishing. Yeah. And to fish a naked line, you would have a natural arc in that line just due to the water and everything like that. So, which is another Stillwater technique, and it's fantastic.
It is, right. So we're kind of focusing right now on just the indicator, but there's a whole bunch of other ones.
You know what? There's so many different. That's the cool thing about Stillwater is there's so many different techniques to fish lakes, right? And they're unexplored. But with the indicators, I mean, that is the big thing. That's what everyone loves, right?
Stonefly Nets builds handcrafted landing nets that are as tough as they are beautiful. They're shaped, sanded, and finished by hand from premium hardwoods. You'll feel the difference the moment you land your first fish. Light in the hands, strong at the hoop, and made by someone who knows what it means to earn your trust. You can head over to stoneflynets.com right now and see what they've got in the shop today. That's stoneflynets.com. Fish the Fly Guide Service is dedicated to sharing the incredible fly fishing opportunities around Jackson Hole. Whether floating the scenic Snake River in search of native cutthroat trout or hiking into the mountains to explore pristine tributaries, every day on the water is an adventure. You can join them for an unforgettable fly fishing experience in the heart of the Tetons at fishthefly.com. And I think today we'll see how many of these we can get to, but I want to stick on the indicator because this is good. You're painting the good picture. So you get down to the depth, and then I guess that's another thing. That's always the question is how do you get down? How do you know when you're at the fish are at 19 feet? Let's just say in this example, how do you know what depth they're at?
Well, first of all, your best friend is sonar, right? So when, to locate the fish in the lake is key. That's actually the hardest part is finding fish in a lake because the lakers, like the fish in a lake have to go find food. They don't stay in one area. Like in a river, it's, you know what I mean? Yep. There's kind of like a little area that they stay in. The food comes down to them. In a lake, they have to go find the food straight out. Yep. So you need to isolate that lake and break it down into like, how do you find fish in a lake, right? And, like drop off some ledges or key weed bedges, underwater structure. Those are your three main primary sources. If there's an inflow of a river or something like that, then that would be another way to find fish in a lake, right? Once you've located and isolated that, then you know that they're the prime feeding zone. If it's sonar is telling you it's 20 feet, you know that you start at 19. They could be mid-column. They could be at 16 in 20 feet of water, but start at 19 and work your way up.
Gotcha. Is this like the sonar or forward-facing sonar, the stuff where it's like a super detailed or what?
No. You honestly, some of the cheapest, when I say sonar, I mean, you're not looking for fish. You're looking for bottom.
Oh, right. Structure. Gotcha.
Yeah. Most guys are looking for bottom. They're looking for those drop-offs, right?
Yeah.
Anything that goes from, that littoral feeding zone and just slowly drops down. That's the key areas. That's what you're looking for.
That's the key cutoff. So if you're so you're looking at the bottom of the structure. So if you see the bottom's like super flat and say it's 30 feet deep, and then all of a sudden you see it go up to a ridge and there's some, that might be it.
That's prime, Dave.
And then you want to get your fly within typically like within a foot of that bottom. Is that where you're starting and then working your way up?
Start there and work your way up. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Because the food source comes from the bottom of the lake and swims up to hatch.
Yeah.
Right. Those chironomids, right? Come up. Or if you're fishing leeches or bloodworms.
Same thing. They're all coming from the bottom.
It's all coming from the bottom and working its way up the water column to either hatch or go find other food sources or just scoot away. I mean, if it's mid-column, maybe it's, something that wants to swim away.
Yeah. Right. Nice. Okay, so that helps us get there to the fish. And is this going to be something where you need a boat, or are there any situations on some of these lakes where you might be able to even fish off the shore? I can imagine, some people, and we're probably going to be up there without a boat. You know what I mean? I might be a place where, we'll just pull off can you find fish right off the shore?
You can. It's a bit difficult here in British Columbia because all the bottoms of our lakes are all like, it's muddy. Like you'll be up to your, so you literally, when I say close to shore, you literally have to stay right on shore, right? Yeah. Maybe a foot or two into the water, but once you get past that, it's just, you'll sink up to your neck in mud, which is good, which is why our lakes are so rich with like food, right? Because that's what grows in that mud. But absolutely. You can fish from shore. You can indicator fish from shore because that, again, is the prime area. Anything close to shore. So again, if you're on shore and you have the room to backcast and everything's good, you're fishing in that prime area, that littoral zone, right? Is, from shore out. It's where the food is. The food sources in Stillwater is. I mean, the biggest myth is everyone thinks the biggest fish live in the middle of the lake. No. That's just so wrong, right? Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. You can fish from shore. And, think about it. Like how many times do you see kids out there? They don't have boats. They're fishing from shore and they're catching fish. It's great. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah, and you should. Yeah, so that's a good thing to know. So we can, make our cast out and, again, find the littoral zone, which we've talked quite a bit about. Especially with Phil's, the stuff he's been doing and everything. So it's good. Well, so we have that. So we know kind of where we're finding fish. Talk about the flies. How do you know what pattern? There's so many chironomids, whether that's like bead colors. Like, simplify this for us so we can say, hey, we want to throw in a chironomid. Do you have a few top patterns you love?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you know what, and that's like a black rabbit hole. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you're scrolling and, there's so many colors and there's so many great tires out there that tie these chironomids that, man, I wouldn't even want to fish. Some of them have like gill filaments and like, you're just like, wow, the amount of detail to these chironomids is crazy. I actually did a whole podcast on that myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Does it need to be that detailed, right?
Talk about that a little bit, Greg, before you get into it. Where is this podcast? Is this on YouTube, or where can we find this podcast?
Yeah, it's on the Stillwater Edge YouTube. It's on Podbeam's my host. So
oh yeah, and you got it out there on Apple Podcasts and all that.
Yeah, it's all the Stillwater Edge, right? So it's one of my episodes that I talked about because again, does it need to be that detailed? Because there's, like you say, there's so many chironomid patterns, and some of these things are works of art, and
yeah,
people are like, if it's not 7 segments within a chironomid, it's not realistic. There's a lot going on, but if you stick with like few core patterns, I'll like 5 patterns, like a chromie, a green, anything with a black, red, and white, like that's like the typical ice cream cone, like that. It's just so black body, red wrap, white bead head, like that's just your classic pattern. Same thing but with silver wrap. Those again are your classic chironomid patterns that you can't go wrong with. A gray with a black head, that'll have you covered. If you came up here with those 5 patterns, you should be covered.
Okay. And what about size? What's your typical size if you said just in general?
Yeah, I would, again, if you go 14s, 14s will be good. I like to stand out, right? So
yeah, 14. So 14s, is that a little bit on the larger side or smaller size for chironomids?
It's a bit on the larger side, but we get some big chironomids up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
These lakes get some big chironomids, and when you're down, and that's again when I talk about that on the show. When you're down, say 20 feet, the fish can't zone in on things like that. So it's more based on in Stillwater, it's more based on movement and profile, right? Shape, movement, and profile. That's what they zone in on as opposed to detail, right? That's what's going to catch a fish's attention. So yeah.
Perfect. I'm seeing it now, and I'm glad you mentioned that, the Stillwater Edge podcast, because you've got the full thing here, and I'm looking at some of these mastering chironomid hatches. You got leech versus woolly bugger. You got a bunch of episodes already here. Talk about that a little bit on the Stillwater Edge. So if people are coming in to that podcast, and for me, I obviously love listening to new podcasts, so I'll be kind of binging that as I go up there. But talk about what your plan is on the podcast. How are you choosing topics? What are you doing, like weekly? How often are the episodes coming out?
Man, I'm crushing. I'm doing bi-weekly topics.
You are. So you're doing 2 episodes every week?
I am. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, as a former podcaster, I wanted to do something, but I actually wanted to do something different. I wanted to do it where it falls on me and something that's just completely different to, I feel like, the podcasting world for fishing. And that is like just short, punchy, snappy little episodes, right? Which are hyper focused on one specific topic. So, leech versus woolly bugger. There's a great topic. So again, having taught, many students over the years, like they always ask you, like a lot of this is from student questions or school of fishing and all, like when we were doing all this stuff, like
Yep.
people ask us, like, what's the difference between, a leech versus a woolly bugger, right? And, like if 5 or 6 people are asking that, I know more are thinking it. And then those that are thinking it aren't saying anything. So it's like, well, let's do a topic on that, right? Because there is a difference, right?
Totally.
So it's a hyper focus, like, say for, I don't know how long that episode is, but it could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes long on what the difference is. And it's literally just me explaining the difference in a super hyper focused, basic, easy way so that everybody can grasp it. Like I said, these are short, punchy episodes where it's just myself. So if you're focused on Stillwater, I mean, this is it. right? This is the easiest way to do it.
This is it. This is the place to go. I love this, and I think when you were originally talking about it, I was so stoked on it because I think it's a great idea. I think that we're doing this interview style right now, and it works really great for a lot of people because you're the expert. We get to all learn from you today, right? And that's the cool thing about the show you're doing is that you're over there just doing these quick little. If you don't have an hour, you can go get 10 minutes. And like the leeches versus woolly buggers, I'd love to hear that. 7 minutes. Okay, let's figure it out. And so let's talk about that real quick. We'll have a link in the show notes to the Stillwater Edge podcast, but tell me, just because I'm interested, I know this is off topic, but leech versus woolly bugger, because I love both of those flies. How are they different?
Well, they're completely different. A leech mimics a natural food source, right? In a lake. So a leech mimics a leech. A woolly bugger can mimic many things, right? So there's about three differences. So a woolly bugger can mimic, it can mimic a leech, it can mimic a bait fish, it can mimic a crayfish, right? Due to its bigger profile. Why has it got a bigger profile? Because of the materials it's tied with, right? And the next thing is the leech is streamlined in the water. A woolly bugger is designed to push water. It's in more of an attractor pattern. It's a great searching pattern. When you don't know what's going on, and the lake's kind of at a tougher time, fish a woolly bugger. It's a classic fly. I mean, I kind of tossed it aside for many years, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, this is a great all-around searching pattern, and it's a classic fly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a leech it's a natural food source that's in a lake that fish feed upon.
So yeah, the balanced leech versus the woolly, but yeah, it's just one's more general. Yeah, it makes total sense.
So that's why, right? So, and the tying materials are completely different on the two. One's, often rabbit strip.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, that answers that question. So let's get back into, kind of where we were at with the, the chironomids and the indicators. So we talked about the leader. I think we got that down. We talked about finding fish. Let's talk about the casting. So that is a tough thing. You got all this weight. You got a long, maybe a 20-foot leader. Or now, first off, on the line, is this typically a 6-weight? What's your rod line setup?
Unless I'm going for smaller fish, I only fish 2 rods. So I fish either a 4 or a 6. That's how I do it. I stay away from the 5s. And I more often use a 6. You know what I mean? Unless I go to these smaller lakes, I'll use a 4 paired with a 5 line because it's windy. When it's windy, you need that line to punch through the wind. So, so I definitely do that. Is fish that 6-weight most often.
Yep, 6-weight, and that's is that a 9-foot or a 10-foot?
So that's the thing too. So I'm actually using the Lamson Radius.
Cool,
fantastic rod, and that's the 10-footer for Stillwater.
So you're using a 10-foot 6-weight.
Yeah, 10-foot 6-weight. For indicator fishing, you want that. Again, another episode, but you always want that leverage, and you need that leverage for so many reasons. You know what I mean? On Stillwater, I can think of like 5 reasons why you want that, but you definitely want to do that. But don't, you know what? If someone has a 9-foot rod, I need to say this, and this has always been my disclaimer.
Yeah.
If you have a 9-foot rod, you can absolutely 100% still fish indicators and still catch fish, right?
Yeah,
it's key, right? But the best tool for the job, right? You can still build a house with a hammer, or you can use a nail gun, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, both get the job done.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. So 10-foot 6-weight is a good rod for a number of reasons, but 9-foot 5-weight would work, too, if you had one.
You betcha.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So we have the setup. We got that. So if I'm out there, we find a little lake, and now talk about size. What if you had this little tiny lake versus you said the giant, lakes? Are you changing your tactics based on that, or is this going to work in small or big?
It's going to work in for the tactics. The tactics are always going to be the same. This is where everybody fails. Is exactly what you just said. Is there a difference between a bigger lake and a smaller lake? And it's if you know how to break down the lake, you'll know how to find the fish. And what you're looking for are those 3 areas. It doesn't matter if the lake's the size of an ocean, or if it's a tiny little, backyard pond. You're looking for structure, you're looking for weed beds, you're looking for drop-offs. Those are your key areas. That's where the fish are going to be, right? So as long as you always approach a lake with that in mind, you'll be able to find fish because that's where the food sources are, right? In still waters.
Yeah, that's right. That's so structure, weed, drop-offs.
Yeah. That whole littoral zone area, like that's if you're
That's
fishing,
how you do it.
Yeah, you're fishing those areas, and that's breaking down that lake.
if we were to go to, let's say we were to go to one of these lakes that you know of that you think you can get into one of those potentially 30, my guess is a lot of people are thinking like, the 30 inch is the big mark, right? Like, how do you, if you're on that lake, how are you finding that 30-inch fish? Or is this something where you kind of might even know, or can you go generally say this is where the bigger fish are?
Yeah. So those are trophy lakes, right? And, trophy lakes required a bit of a different tactic and bit different, presentation. Trophy lakes get a lot of pressure because a lot of guys go out there thinking they can catch that 30, 28 to 30-inch rainbow, consistently. And I got to be honest, like, it's not a consistent game. It's not a game. No. You can put in as much time as you want, and you won't always have that consistency. It's a hunt. It truly is. It's like when I went permit fishing, and that was a hunting game. And, I'll tell you, like, it's the same thing going after those big fish. And it's a game of a bit of skill and luck together. That's where that kind of rubs in together. But things change. Your presentation style changes. Your approach changes on how you present these are big fish, and they didn't get big for a reason, right? Like, they're smart. They truly are smart, but it's fun, right? And can I get you on there? I can't guarantee a fish, but I can get you to the zone. We can get hits all day. It's up to the angler
it's up to the angler.
Yeah, it's up to the angler.
So you just got to put your time in, like you said. So if there's this 30-inch fish you're chasing, you're going to use the same method of trying to find out, where they're at starting, whether that's if it's 20 feet.
We're breaking down that lake, going there based on what the day is, based on where the wind's blowing, based on everything.
Gotcha.
I don't know until you get there.
Yeah, until you get there. Yep. Do you guys have lakes up there? I mean, it's always compare the thing, the U.S., more people, things are super pressured. BC or just Canada, generally less people. Do you find there's places that are super busy, like your crowded lakes, or is there most lakes not that?
So yes and no. So at the beginning, because we, our lakes freeze over up here, come December to about a week or two. So April, let's say mid-April. Okay. They freeze over. So when a lake has its ice off and it's close within a region and it gets announced, that lake will receive a ton of pressure because everyone's itching to get out. Right.
Right. Yeah.
As the lakes slowly start to open up, other guys will start dissipating and hitting other lakes. You do have your commercial lakes, so like I'm going to call them family lakes, where someone comes up here, they don't really know what they're doing, they're going to fish these lakes, and it can be busy, and they're fishing in some of the worst times, like July, right? Like
so July is not a good time to fish.
It's definitely a harder time to fish. And when these people that come up here and they're camping and stuff like that, like they're fishing, midday, hot day, July, and they, you know what I mean? That's a hard time to fish. You can still catch fish if you, again, know what you're doing, know where the fish are, right? So it is, it's totally doable. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and it could be busy. So the family lakes or the areas, and are they stocking? I mean, are these lakes where they might be stocking fish more regularly?
Yeah. 100% put and take 100% because those lakes will get hammered, and anything that's you've all heard the term pan fry. Well, everything's a pan fry then, right?
Yeah, you can go up there and get some small fish to eat on the fire, right?
You betcha, right?
Which is cool.
Which is great because that's again, it's a put and take fishery. Stillwater, and that's what's great, and that's why Stillwater is growing, because there's so many regulations on different fisheries in British Columbia.
Yeah.
That this is a sport fishery that someone that is let's call them a 3-time-a-year angler. They can come up here, they can catch a little rainbow and with their family, and have that experience. And you know what? That's great.
It is.
I avoid those lakes when I'm taking we're taking clients out guiding. We don't need to go to those lakes. Let other people go to those lakes, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's cool, right? So it works for everybody.
Patagonia just launched the next evolution in waders, and they're built for anglers just like you. The Swift Current line includes ultralight, packable options for the hiking, crew, and expedition-ready waders if you're hard on your gear like me. They're designed for comfort, built from recycled materials, and backed by Patagonia's ironclad warranty. You can check them out right now at wetflyswing.com/swiftcurrent. That's wetflyswing.com/SWIFTCURRENT. Swift Current waders. Check them out now. We wrapped up a 5,000-mile road trip to Wisconsin last year, and our Project M from 4 Wheel Campers made the entire journey better than we imagined. From remote campsites to spontaneous detours, we had the freedom to go where we wanted in total comfort. For over 50 years, 4-Wheel Campers has been building ultra-durable, lightweight pop-up campers that fit almost any truck bed. The pop-up design sets up in under a minute, and with the Project M like we have, I can set up and still use my tailgate and truck bed whenever I need it. Whether you want a minimalist setup like mine or something fully built out, like the Premium Orvis Edition, 4-Wheel Campers has a camper to match your adventure goals. Do you have a truck? Head over to 4wheelcampers.com right now, customize your camper, find a local dealer, see upcoming events, and more. Trust me, you're going to love checking out 4-Wheel Campers. And these techniques we're talking about, this, the chironomid, I mean, this works everywhere, right? Probably everywhere in the world, right? You can use this technique to fish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, down where you guys are.
Yeah.
I mean, people are, they fish tiny little midges at Pyramid.
Oh, yeah, they do. So Pyramid, they fish midges too, yeah.
Yeah, right? And then, I mean, Henry's Lake, right? Down where you guys are, chironomiding is fantastic.
It's all good. Yeah, I think that's the one cool thing about this is that, you can learn this technique from you, from Phil, from whoever the experts, and then just take it to your home water. And like you said, and the kids, I think the Stillwater is actually a really cool place for kids to get started because especially if you have a boat, you can get them out there in the boat, right? Talk about that a little bit. You have some kids that I think your kids are a little bit older than mine. Mm-hmm. Are the kids at the age where they're still loving, do they get out there fishing with you?
Yeah. I brought them out 2 weeks ago and we went to a lake, because we wanted to, I was telling them about this strain that the government put in called the horsefly strain. And these fish grow big and they're aggressive and whatnot. So I brought the kids to fish and we were out there and they did so well.
What were you guys doing? What was the technique you guys were doing?
So we were indicator fishing, and it's funny because my kids are 12 and 14. Okay. So I'm out there where I'm like, okay, I'll cast because there's two of them in the boat. I'm like, I will cast for you guys. The indicator's out, and you guys do the rest. And I swear to God, so they landed 10 fish, big fish. We're talking, 4 to 6 pounds. And
wow,
what is it called? So they did that. They landed 10 of those, but they lost 20. And what I mean by that is because I'm like, hey, your indicator's under. And they're like, really? Is it? And I'm like, well, pay attention to it, right? Like it's an inch and a half under the water.
Right.
So I'm like, they're like, well, and again, it's a teaching moment and they could have had way more. And they're like, we could have had a better day. I'm like, you could have, but I go that it was a teaching moment. Dad can do that for you, but I want you guys to learn, right? And it's really cool. And they're learning, right? And they're trying to, the older boy was getting where he was setting, but he didn't strip in or something like that. And he'd lose the fish. And I'm like, it's just a fish, guys. We've already caught a lot today.
Yeah. Is that what it is on the fit when that indicator goes down? Can it be super subtle? Like talk about that. How do you know when
absolutely. That's what's one of the best things, right? So Stillwater fishing is again, I love talking about this is because in Stillwater, that fly, so that chironomid is, sitting there on the bottom.
Yeah, it's just sitting there, right? I mean, it's sitting there literally like a foot above the bottom, just doing nothing. Or maybe it's moving a little bit with the wind current.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's always a natural current. So, and I'm a fish. I can come. You wouldn't know, right? Because it's 19 feet down. I'm a fish. I could be an inch away from that fly, inspecting every little thing on that fly, and I could eat it or I could swim away, and you would never know the difference. So, the cool thing is like, so when you're doing that, sometimes they just quickly suck that in or they nose it or mouth it or swirl around it. And you see that indicator, and that indicator's indicating to you, which is what its job is to do, right? Is indicate that something's going on.
Yeah. Will that indicator like turn a little bit or what will it do with a real subtle?
Absolutely. It'll turn. If they suck that chironomid in and they feel that line touch their lips, they'll spit it out really quickly. So that indicator will kind of go under and then pop back up. And then you're like, oh, that was a fish.
Oh, right. How do you set the hook on that thing when it's doing
that? You tip to the sky. So as soon as that indicator is moving or under, or you think it's a fish, tip to the sky.
Is it like a super like rip it as hard as you can, or is it more like answering your phone?
Answering your phone. Yeah. A good answer in your phone, a solid answer in your phone, and then you want to make sure you get that tension on that line. When you hook them, they're going to swim, right?
Yeah.
If they swim towards you, you make sure you start stripping in some line. If they're, the key is when I say, and I guess I should point that out. So tip to the sky. Make sure that you're holding the line in your other finger, like in your one of your right underneath the rod. You need that tension on that line, right?
Gotcha.
And that's where, again, that story I was saying is my kids would tip to the sky, but they wouldn't have the tension on the line. So therefore the fish could easily, as soon as you put that tension on that line with the rod tip to the sky, it's game on, man.
That's it. So if you're a right-hand caster, you're going to have like your index finger will have your line in holding it, so you could stop it and put pressure on it at any point.
Perfect. There you go. Well said, Dave. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then is it typically, you mentioned Lamson. We love Nick at Lamson and all the good stuff they're doing. Of course, they're known for one of the lightest reel in the world, right? In Lamson. But is it typically that you're just stripping them, or are you getting them on the reel in a drag a lot?
Yeah, you're stripping, you're doing both. So if you can get them on in a boat situation, if you can get them on the reel, you need them on a reel. And there's a variety of reasons why. Number one is when you start getting all that fly line around your feet in your boat, around, next thing is wrapped around an oar or a seat or, a gut, like a gunnel. And that fish takes a run. That fly line catches on, a rivet in your boat,
you're done.
Boom, it's gone. And if we were out fishing that day, and that's your 30-inch rainbow, and that fly line stops that fish, the chances are that tippet's going to break, right? And you've lost that fish.
Yeah.
So having it on the reel is absolutely critical in that. Now, there's times when that fish is swimming towards you, you don't have the opportunity. You have to strip that. You have, again, keeping that pressure on that fish, you have to strip that line in. And then once you have that fish under control and you're managing that fish, hence why those 10-foot rods are so great.
Oh, yeah.
You can start reeling in that slack line that's around your feet to get it on the reel. And I highly suggest someone does that right away.
Yeah.
It's definitely key.
Well, that's killer. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? Once you get a fish. If we go back to before you get the fish, and I saw you do a video, I think it was a video or maybe it was a reel. It was great because you were showing your stripping, different, and you're talking about the point you're making was different, mix it up, you know what I mean? But talk about that. So if you're on indicator, are you actually also now, can you strip in that, or is that mostly you're letting it sit there?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can so sometimes when you're indicator fishing, trout want to move and fly. And other times too is when you're indicator fishing. As an angler, it can get boring sitting there staring at an indicator if you're not getting a hit. So what do? Well, to keep yourself engaged in the fishing and, slowly pull that line in, like give yourself a tiny little 1-inch pulls and move that indicator. Remember, it's a chironomid. It's not, a fish.
Yeah. What do chironomids do? Do chironomids what do they kind of like just swim constantly up to the surface, or they
swim straight up the water column?
Yeah, straight up.
Yep. So they're in the bottom. They swim straight up. They hatch. They fly away, and they move on.
Okay. So you want to do like maybe an inch strip, and then do you also want to maybe mix up and do longer or faster and everything in between?
I don't. I kind of do a 1-inch, 1 to 2-inch pull. And the biggest thing is stopping. A pause is
the pause.
The pause. You know what? Same with you guys with the river stuff, man. It's the pause, right?
That's when they hit. Is the pause.
Always when they hit is the pause. It doesn't matter. Like so many different fisheries I fished, and whether it's salt or fresh or rivers or steelheading, like it's always the pause.
It's the pause. Because they're following it. They might be following it for potentially maybe a minute, right? Or who knows, right? And then you're on it, and then as soon as it stops, time to eat.
Yeah, it's the pause. It's crazy. The only fishery that I can think of is like if you're trolling, in the salmon fishery where there's never a pause, right? You're just, that boat's just moving. I mean, maybe on a turn, it hits it on a turn often. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which is a bit of a pause because
same deal.
That bait would kind of drop. Yeah, I guess it's always the pause.
Yeah, it's always pause.
But
okay.
But to get for the chironomid, switch it up, pull it in. If I'm gonna do a fly change, I'll slowly strip that other fly in, and quite often you'd be so surprised. And like now again, like when you're chironomid fishing, 5-10 feet from the boat, boom, you get hit because you've stripped that in. It's chased it, which is really cool.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So that's cool. So that gives a little summary on kind of some of the techniques, indicators, stuff like that. Let's go back to, looking at the high level. Again, you're in, essentially this is Kamloops, right? Kelowna, they're kind of would you consider it kind of the same area, or is Kamloops a little bit different area?
Well, we have a bit of camaraderie between the two of us, of course, but, right?
Yeah. More similar than like Burns Lake.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm an hour and a half from Kamloops.
Yeah. So Prince George, all that is more like you get up in the Skeena system.
That's the north. That's northern British Columbia is what they call that area for sure. Yeah. Our area is a great area. It's,
Yeah. It's so big. You know what I mean? That's the thing about Canada, the provinces is they're so giant. I mean, literally, if you look at it on a map, just from looking, I mean, it pretty much put California, Oregon, Washington, probably some of Mexico together, and you might have the coastline of British Columbia,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
massive.
it's insane. I mean, hey, but we're the second largest country in the world, right? So
Yeah, right, right, totally.
by landmass, that is.
By landmass, you are right. So you're the second. So what's the first?
Russia.
Russia, of course. Yeah, Russia's first. So we're exploring this little area of kind of southern BC, and you're not far from a couple hours, right, from Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm 4 hours from Vancouver.
Oh, wait, 4 hours, yeah.
Yeah, 4 hours, which is pretty close. Yeah, and this is the Mecca. I mean, if you want to catch, big rainbow trout, this is the Mecca.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm excited about this, and we're going to talk more. So let's take it out of here in a little bit. This is our Instagram stories segment here, and we're going to. I've got a few more questions for you, and then we'll start to take it out. But for the Instagram stories, I know you're doing some stuff on Instagram. Give us. Do you have a fishing? You talked about one with your kids, but do you have a big fish story? Have you landed some of those big rainbows up there, or something you could share with us?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 Do you remember one, like, what's one memorable one where you think, and talk about how you caught that fish? Like, what were you using? Were you using indicators, or what that looked like?
Yeah, I mean, been at some trophy lakes, been working hard, worked all day, and all of a sudden, you start seeing that low light coming on, and you're just like, man, this has been a grind of a day and nothing really happening. And you're slowly starting to pack up a few rods because I have about 8 rods in my boat at all times, and all of a sudden, I just watch that indicator go under, and boom, lift it up. There it is, and you're bringing in a nice 28-inch rainbow.
Yeah,
Right, all on a chironomid
on the indicator.
on the indicator, and those are great days. I can tell you, another great one too was last year. Actually, last year at Ice Off, with my son, he had a massive fish, and again, he couldn't fight it. Being a new fisher, and we were at a lake, and it was Ice Off. He was fishing a balance leech under an indicator. That leech slowly went under. I'm like, you have a fish on lift up. He did, and it was just a tank of a fish, and we got it right to the boat. The water was gin clear, and yeah, my estimate on that would probably be about a 28, 29-inch rainbow. And
Wow.
we just went to get it. That fish just darted right under the boat. He just, being a new angler, couldn't get
No.
on there. And boom, the fly came apart.
Oh, it did.
When we came in, we brought that in, and the eye was still attached to the fly line.
No kidding. Oh, so did the hook bend?
The hook bent. Yeah.
Oh, wow, bent the hook.
Because it was a balance leech, right, that he was on. And
wow.
it just came apart, and it was right at the boat, ready, just net in hand, ready to grab that. And
No kidding. What was do you remember the color of the balance leech?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was a vampire leech, classic pattern that you need if you're going to do Stillwater Ice Off.
Okay, vampire leech.
Vampire leech, great pattern.
Yeah,
It's
cool.
actually a Stillwater must. It needs to be in your box.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, vampire. And that's what today, we're not going to get into all the techniques. We'll have to bring you back on and talk more about some of this other stuff. But, we did talk, I think, chironomids. Anything on the chironomids anything else we missed or you want to highlight just on the chironomid fishing?
You know what? It's not as intimidating as people think. I think that's what I needed to highlight is it's not as intimidating as you think. Listen to the podcast, it's the same leader setup that I've done. I've been doing it for years. I got 20 years of doing this. So, use that leader system. It's there. It's a tool. Follow it. Have fun.
Yeah, perfect. And what is your, we talked about July. I think that's going to be the time we're probably going to be swinging up through there. But what is your favorite? Is Ice Off better, or is more the fall? What times do you like to really hit it hard?
I like the spring and the fall.
Spring and fall.
Yeah, spring and the fall, particularly when the water. So it's when the water temperatures start getting to that 50 mark. Oh man, it's lights out for chironomid fishing. I mean, there's days where we can put 2 anglers in a boat and we'll get 60 fish.
Wow.
30 apiece.
So it just warms up enough, or it gets in that right where it's just the prime time eating and feeding.
The prime time, it's indicators down. You can't keep them off. You actually, those are the days where you can't even eat your lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're on it.
And you have to tell clients, it's like, do not let that rod, it needs to be in a holder or it needs to be in your hand, because that rod will just get pulled right in. So those are those days. Those are massive times. And obviously the feed's on. But when you're coming up, it's a great time too. It's, as long as we hit it in the morning or in the later evening.
Right. Hit it when it's cooler. Right.
Yeah. And then you change tactics during the day for when it's that higher
Go
temperatures,
deeper.
right? Yeah, we go deeper and
Yeah.
do different tactics, like a long lining chironomid tactic, which, we'll talk about another day on a show. But, that's how we get them then, right?
Yep. Wow. What are just quickly, like rapid fire here, what are the other techniques? You've got balance leeches, you've
Sure.
got, what other types of techniques?
So there's a naked type technique. There would be long lining technique. There's a washing line, which isn't so much allowed up here, but in other
Mm,
regions it is. There'd be the dangle, which is what we would probably be doing when you came out. That's a highly effective technique. So those
okay.
are a few good techniques. There's always the cast and strip as well. So that wouldn't be with a chironomid so much, but that would be, within tractor patterns or leeches or other bigger bugs that are going to be out at that time of year for Stillwater. So, yeah, those are some crazy techniques.
Wow, this is great. Okay, so I guess, yeah, a couple things I wanted to touch on here. One thing I was thinking about Brian Chan. I think he is the guy
Legend.
up there that's the legend. Who's filled, is Brian still up there going? So I know he's not working anymore, but who's filling his spot, or is he still doing a lot of stuff?
You know what? I don't think anyone can fill Brian's spot.
He's just like a famous, yeah, he's
Yeah,
the guy.
I,
It's
I
hard to
don't think
fill his.
anyone could actually fill Brian's shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, he did so much for the lakes up here, and he built a lot of this fishery that we're actually talking about today. He's been in all these lakes as a biologist. That's what he's done. So I don't know of anyone that can fill it. I know, Phil and I, we were business partners in a few things
Yep.
up here. And we've taught schools for many years, and like Phil's doing it. He's killing it. He
Yeah.
with the education department, he's absolutely killing it with his schools, his podcast,
And
everything, right? His
his
show,
show
like,
circuit. I mean,
yeah.
that guy. You know what Phil is? And you know this better than anybody. I always talk about Phil Roy because he's like probably in his 60s, right, somewhere in
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah.
And the guy is like he could just go all day long.
He's a rock star.
He's a rock star. He could party with like whoever. He'll stay up and then he'll get up and just do a full session, right? He's like,
Yeah.
well, how does Phil do it? What's the deal with Phil?
I don't know how he does it. Dude, I've been to times where I'm like, Phil, I gotta go to bed, man. He's like, oh, come on, right? And you're like, Jesus, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've been there with
Oh
that.
yeah, well, it's Skachid. When we did
Yeah,
that first Skachid trip,
yeah. Like,
where we were up
I
there.
remember you did like a straight shot drive and stuff, and Phil just goes. I'm just like, wow, this guy can go. And he's just a machine, and he's always on. He's always
Yes,
on. Like,
he's always on. I
like
know.
it's just. And it's cool because he just speaks with such passion. And for me to learn a lot of what I learned from him was like, I can't thank him enough. And like, the guy's awesome. So,
Yeah, totally.
Phil definitely, yeah, he's the legend up here. So who else is taking spots? I really don't know. I mean,
So there's nobody that's filled the spot yet.
no one's filled the spot. I mean, like, there's myself, like, we're offering a great education program up here. Guiding, I think, who else would
Yeah.
be up here?
Well, let's take it to that with the guiding. So if somebody is listening right now and they're thinking, "Man, this all sounds awesome. I want to learn more about this." What is what are you telling somebody if they're calling you? Is that the thing you're saying? Hey, Greg, I want to go fishing. What are we doing?
You know what? Hey, like, my web designer is backed up. I mean, you know that,
Yep.
Dave. So I do have a website coming, guys, and it'll be moments, right?
Yeah.
Within months. But I would say reach out to me on social media. Reach out to me on my Instagram account. Let's get you booked in. I have everything set and ready to send you like an email of like, boom, here you are. And then we book you in and get you a trip. And
Yep. Are you going to be doing more like are you going to be open all months of the season, or what's that look like?
yeah, well, basically the guiding season is going to be it's from April to pretty much the end of November. That's when I'll guide. Yeah, I don't do the ice fishing stuff, at least not right now. And then, the bigger water here in Kelowna, I would need a bigger boat for that.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, the bigger stuff, right?
But that's the Stillwater fly fishing season for us, right? And you know, uh,
That's a big season
yep.
though. April. I mean, you're talking over 6 months. So, and they're going to come out, meet up with you. Or are they going to meet up in the morning and hop on? And you do have a boat. I mean, you got a decent sized boat, right?
Yeah, I had to buy a new boat this year to accommodate two anglers at the so if two full grown men want to come, right, or whoever it is, two full grown adults want to jump in that boat, we're totally good and able to accommodate that. It's comfortable. The boat's been customized and decked out. It's a Stillwater machine, Dave. I mean, this is
Yes,
what we do, right?
it's ready to
So
go.
yeah, to basically reach out, we meet at there's a certain spot that I meet at. Ironically, it's Canada, so there's a Tim Hortons.
Oh yeah, meet at Tim Hortons, of course.
Right.
That's
So
right.
yeah, we would meet at the Tim Hortons in West Kelowna, and we'd either jump in my truck and drive up together to the lake, or if someone said, "Hey, I want to take my own car," if that's fine. Here's where we're going. Follow me, and we drive up to the lake of that day. Again, a lot of it depends on that pre-meeting conversation of what your objective is. If you're going after a 30 or you're going after 30 fish, right?
Right.
That's the biggest key. 'Cause I want to make sure that we're able because we can't do both.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be cool if I was coming up with you to be like, hey, let's go for the 30, let's go for the numbers the first day, and then maybe if we book another day, we'll go for the bigger, right? Because you get the technique down. Is that maybe a better way to do it?
100%.
Yeah,
That's exactly how you do it.
yeah. Because I mean, I would love. I'm not a crazy fish snob. I don't have to try to catch the biggest. I love catching fish. So if I caught a bunch of even, whatever, just learn the technique, and then that's the cool thing is now you take that technique to your home water and you do it right.
That's right. And that's key. That's how you manage because when you're hunting for a 30, it is a bit different, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's probably we've heard this a lot on the podcast recently because Chad Johnson, he's been talking a lot about big fish and we've, muskie. There's all this stuff that they all say the same thing, whether it's brown trout or giant trophy fish. You've got to put your time in, and you likely will get skunked. And it is Stillwater. It sounds like catching a 30-inch Stillwater is the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, we might catch fish that day in that lake, but it might not be a 30, right? Um, going for those big fish, it's just a different hunting method, right? Like everything's changed up, right? You know what I mean? And it's not everything changed up. I shouldn't say that. Quite a few things change up. Do you know what I mean? Because we're hunting a trophy. You're hunting a trophy. And Chad's 100% right. Like you do have to put your time in.
Are those trophy trout, those say the 25, 30-inch, are they eating other fish?
So some lakes they do.
Yeah. But they're not lake trout. Obviously, lake trout is a little bit different, but like for the most part, you guys have big rainbows as the species.
Correct. It's big rainbows. Yeah. So, but in like 99% of the lakes up here that we're they're eating bugs, right? But there could be minnows in there. And I will tell you this though. This year one of my goals is to try and get a big fish on a mouse in still waters.
Oh, on a mouse.
Yep. I want to get one on a
Amazing.
mouse pattern, and it's obviously it's at the dusk in the evening, like late dusk evening, and try and fish those shallows and get a mouse on there, and that to me is going to be an ultimate goal.
That's amazing. Yeah. I feel like back to the woolly bugger. I think the woolly bugger, we've said it many times, I think is the greatest fly pattern of all time, because
Is it?
it does everything, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it could imitate, right? You could be imitating a minnow with that, right?
absolutely. It's an attractor pattern. It's like it's like walking by a chocolate bar. It's bright and colorful, and it catches your eye for a reason. It's an attractor pattern, right? You're like, oh, I'm gonna eat that.
Well, one technique, and we'll take it out here pretty quick, Greg, but I had a kind of another random question. So one technique I used to do a lot back in the day in Stillwaters was trolling. You put on a woolly bugger or something, maybe a sinking line, and you literally in your float tube and you control across or a boat or whatever. Well, is trolling something you've ever done, or why is trolling not as effective or do you think it is effective?
All right. So if you've ever listened to my podcast in episode 1, I talk about how for many years I was a troller, and that's how I got started. And I built up my confidence, and I talk about it on the Instagram,
Oh, cool.
where I do a video. I said, if you want to catch a fish today in still waters, and you don't know how to cast, and you don't know how to indicator fish,
Yep.
get a sinking line, tie on a pattern like a woolly bugger, and troll. You will catch a fish as long as you concentrate on these 3 areas: drop offs, weed beds, and shoals. You'll catch a fish.
Right.
You will catch a fish. It's the easiest way to get started in still waters and build your confidence up. If you're taking kids out, if I'm taking my kids out with a kid that I don't know, I'm not going to put them on indicators. We're going to troll long leaders and just troll.
No.
The kids get big fish. They still get the fish, not as many, but they're still getting fish. And hey, man, like that's what it's about. Get that confidence up. I don't know anyone that's going to be like, oh, I only got, I'm upset I got a fish, right?
Yeah. That's why. Okay, so that's still a valid technique.
100%, as long as you're trolling with purpose, not, like in the middle of the lake, not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, just mindlessly.
So yeah, it's an incredibly effective technique, and it covers a lot of water fast.
Perfect. Good. Well, I think we can leave it there, Greg, for today. I mean, this has been awesome. I do want to one random one. You mentioned Tim Hortons, so I do want to know, and I've been there, before. What is it about? Is it the coffee or is it the food that's the better thing at Tim Hortons?
Well, you know what, Dave, I'm celiac, so it's not much for me, but
Oh, right, that's right. You don't have any. Yes,
it's
so it's
the
more
location.
just the. And who was Tim Horton? Who is Tim Horton?
He was a famous hockey player, actually. He
Oh,
was
of
a
course,
famous
hockey.
case. Yeah, so he was a famous Toronto Maple Leaf, and he invested in this coffee shop called Tim Hortons, based after him, and it kind of morphed from there. And here we are now. It's completely lost its roots. It's sold out. I think it's owned by an offshore company, and
Oh, it is sure. Just like all good capitalism, right? Eventually.
exactly. So, and now I don't know what. Now I don't go there at all because again, I can't eat. So it's a donut shop, right? So,
Yeah. Well, hockey is great because it's well, obviously Canada, you guys still dominate. I think most of the great players have come from Canada and probably are in the US because they get paid more, right? Something like that. But what's the hockey? Are your kids still into it?
oh yeah, we're a huge hockey family. Kids are into hockey. Kids are doing the spring hockey now, and
Yep. They're doing it. I love it. What are the chances? I always think of the NBA, and my thing is that when I was a kid, I wanted to be in the NBA, and I think 300 people make the NBA. So it's 1 in a million. Is hockey kind of similar?
hockey's even worse, I think.
Oh, it's even worse.
You spend more on equipment, more on gear, more on ice time, and everything like that. And
Yeah, of course, it's not about that. It's about just the kids. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's the parents that just have this illusion of or disillusion, whatever it is, if their
Yeah.
kid's making it. And we've explained to our kid that you're not going to make it, and there's not a scholarship in sight, so don't worry about it, and just keep playing for fun until you say no.
Yep.
It's not in the cards. He's just
It's a good way to remind. No, I think any activity is good as long as you're doing something, right? That's always for the kids, staying busy.
absolutely right. For kids to get out there, and whether it's fishing or hockey or NBA or like basketball, whatever, right? Just get out, have fun.
Perfect. Cool. All right, Greg. Well, we'll send everybody out to Stillwater Edge out there on YouTube, on the podcast,
love it.
on Instagram. And yeah, man, this has been a lot of fun. I think we'll definitely be following up with you and keeping up and hopefully getting a trip sometime soon.
Well, you're always welcome here, David. You know that. So,
All right, man. We'll be in touch.
All right, buddy.
All right, your call to action today is go check in with Greg on YouTube, Stillwater Edge. Subscribe to his channel. Follow some of those shorties he's got there. Also, his podcast, Stillwater Edge. Subscribe, follow that show, and you'll get some nice nuggets. Like you said, 10-minute bite-sized nuggets to get little updates. And in an hour, you could watch 6 of those probably. So go get your fill of content if you need more of Stillwater right now. Just want to remind you before we get out of here, we have a CJ's Real Southern podcast will be live next week. And I wanted to make sure you can go after and chase some bigger fish on flowing rivers. Chad Johnson, the CJ's Real Southern podcast. This one is epic. I appreciate you for stopping in today and listening all the way till the end. I hope you have an amazing morning. Hope you have a great afternoon. If it's evening, if it's late in the evening, and you're still listening to this one, maybe on a road trip, I always think of the road trip, or maybe you're flying across the country. I appreciate you for sticking all the way to the end, and we will see you on that next episode.